Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chapalang podcast. I'm your host Sepeng. We also have film director and co-host Jonathan Chu. Our guest today is Vincent Quek, founder of Incubating Pictures, which has released some of our favorite films in the past few years, such as Faces Places, The House That Jack Built, Tony Artman, The Killing of the Sacred Deer, In Fabric, Monos, The Square, Triangle of Sadness, Good Time, Suspiria, House of Hummingbird, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, So Long, My Son, and Long Day's Journey into Night. I'm missing probably half a dozen more, but that's already a lot of films, and I love, I would say 99% of them. I think the only exception is Pikan's film, which I absolutely hate.
Okay, this interview is over.
Vincent, thanks for being on the pod. I really love the work that you do.
Yeah.
And fun fact for the audience, I've actually interviewed Vincent before in 2017 when I was working as a film reviewer at In Cinemas. I don't know if you remember.
No, but things have changed since 2017.
Yes.
Give you an update with this interview in 2023.
Yeah. And fun fact, Vincent and I actually teach in the same school, the Singapore University of Social Sciences, in the film department, the film studies department. He teaches a course called The Business of Film, if I'm not wrong. Yeah,
that's right.
Vincent, have you started your marking already?
That's not.
Okay, let's not talk.
I will make the deadline for sure.
Okay. Yeah. But anyway, funny thing just now when Sepeng was listing the films, right? And then I just had this really quick image, because you are the guy who bring these films in, and I know this is a very crude comparison, but it's like the connect, right, that brings your bootleg films from JB or Malaysia, back in the day where you have that one friend who hey, I'm gonna bring this the good films back, that kind, and then you're like, hey, what do you have here? But of course, you acquire them through legal and open distribution.
Things have changed.
Not through the causeway.
Since when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me aboard. Yeah, I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe if you could just give a quick intro of yourself for audiences who might not know who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Vincent Quek. I am the founder of Incubating Pictures. Incubating Pictures is a Singapore-based film distribution company. And what that means is we are the connection between films made overseas and Singapore audiences primarily. We have acquired and have distributed about 70 films. And we started in May 2016 with our acquisition of Tony Erdmann, which was a 2016 father-daughter comedy film from Cannes. It was 2.5 hours long, and we released that to some success. And that was our first ever film. And since then, we have built year after year on our experiences on the ground in Singapore, trying to get screens, trying to get the best partners on board who believe in the films as much as we do, and get them to watch get them to show the films to our audiences here in Singapore. In more recent years, we have explored releasing films and acquiring them for Thailand as well. Probably the only other viable art house feature film market in Southeast Asia. So that's currently where Incubating Pictures is standing. We release about 10 films a year. When I first started in 2016, I wanted to have a film out every month.
Wow.
But over the years, that has gone down slightly because acquisition costs have gone up, as well as just generally looking at the calendar of the movie release dates. So it just comes out to about an average about 10. Some years it's maybe down to 8. I think those were the earlier years when we were paying for films that were quite high, and we had to like buy less films because the budget's only that much. Yeah, but for now we were about 10 films a year, and we most recently released the Earth Certificate winner called How to Have Sex at the projector, and that started playing since the 3rd of November, the same day and date as the movie UK release, which is something that we always try and do, is we time it to be as close to the US or UK release as much as possible for certain strategic and also contractual obligations. We have to do that. So that's our most current release at the time of this recording. And we are looking forward to releasing our next few titles, starting with Anatomy of a Fall, which is our Palme d'Or winner, the French winning film from Cannes this year. And that will release in 23rd of November. And then in December, we will release Tiger Stripes after its premiere at the Singapore International Film Festival in 30th of November. So Tiger Stripes, the theatrical release, is going to occur on the 14th, I believe, the Thursday of that week, the 14th of December of 2023. So that will be our last title in 2023. And then next year we have Evil Does Not Exist, the Ryosuke Hamaguchi film. We will have Perfect Days, the Wim Wenders film. So we do like working with auteurs, especially the ones that premiere at A-list festivals. And we can go into the reasons why I do that. So yeah.
Yeah, I watched Wim Wenders' Perfect Days during Perspective, and it is the best film I've watched this year.
Wow.
It is.
I'm seeing you see Anatomy of a Fall. Okay. Okay. I'm glad you think that you like Perfect. I'm glad you love it.
Man.
Yeah. It's an understatement for me to say how much I love it. Yeah, I was I felt a very, very fundamental joy when I watched that character going about his daily life. And the way, even though he leads such a mundane life, but he's very sensitive to the movements of life around him, and there are small little moments where he just observes the light. He observes how the leaves sway in the wind, and wow, all that is just so it's almost soul stirring. Yeah, but so I highly recommend that film. And yeah, so I think before we really get into Anticipate, maybe just a quick tour into your background. So you studied in the US in a famous film school in California, and you interned at a few famous film companies like IFC Films and Universal Pictures. So I'm just curious, what did you learn during your time at the US, both studying in USC, if I remember correctly, and interning at IFC and Universal?
Sure. As Saping, you have correctly put it. I'm formally educated in filmmaking at the University of Southern California, the School of Cinematic Arts. It is the premier film school in Los Angeles, and some say the US. I was there for my undergraduate studies. I was very lucky to be accepted. I think they saw something in me. Maybe I have some stories I could tell. But while in film school, I realized I was not or at least interested in filmmaking as I thought I would be when I first applied and got in. And so I had to pivot in the middle of my junior year, my third year out of a 4-year course. So in the middle of my third year, I realized, hey, I'm not that excited or very, I'm not so enthusiastic about wanting to be on film sets as much as my classmates did. When my friends were gushing about the latest red cameras, I was sort of not into that. I was gushing about how wonderful Los Angeles cinemas were because I could finally see all the films I wanted to see. And on any given day, while they were at a prop house picking up props, I was at the Best Buy picking out movies to buy. So that gave me a sort of indication about where my inclinations lay. And in the internship year, so we have an internship course that we could take in the last year of our undergraduate studies. I managed to get in touch with IFC Films. IFC Films, for those of you who do not know, in 2013 when I interned with them, they were hot off being the distributors and producers of Boyhood, which is a film I really loved. and some Ben Wheatley films. And then they also released Blue is the Warmest Color in the US. So very much Arthouse, prestige Arthouse films, as well as some, and they also have an IFC Midnight, which has infamously released All Three Human Centipedes. Ben Wheatley's films, which I absolutely adore. So I managed to intern at IFC. So I spent 2 months in New York City with them, and again, you could find me. Okay, so at IFC Films, I was also under their acquisitions department because I was very interested to find out what was that bridge between finishing the film, because I was of course learning how to make films in film school, so I knew how to make them. But what happens after the film is being made till it reaches the cinema screens, and I realized distribution was sort of that link in the movie industry, and so my first foray into acquisition. So an acquisitions department in a distribution company is primarily the department that handles getting the product or getting the films to be distributed under the company. So that means getting in touch with independent distributors, independent producers of films, people who make the films as well, or sales agents, people who represent films to be sold. And so I learned how to cover a film from a film distribution perspective, as well as how they liaise with the cinemas, because there's always an exhibition relations person within the film distribution company whose network is all the cinemas, and how they try and wrangle deals and maintain their relationships with the movie bookers, the film bookers in these movie circuits, these cinema circuits like AMC cinemas, Regal, of course, and all the independent cinemas in the US. So at ISC, I learned kind of boot camp style. They put me in a very small desk with an overflowing pile of film screeners. I never finished because it was so much, and I was screening something like 5 films a day from my desk, writing coverage. And part of my assignment morning was to cover the daily trades. So what that meant was I had to send an email compiling all the most important information about the movie industry from various sources like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline.com, IndieWire, etc. And I will compile this email and send it out to the everybody in the organization, including the CEO. So that sort of was my way of their way of training the intern to be very much in touch with what was the moving and shaking going on in the movie world. And the fact that, of course, your email lands up in the CEO's inbox. I mean, whether or not he or she reads it is another thing altogether. But the fact that you had to do this thing every day made me very much involved and also very interested in the movie industry in general. And then after that, if they had nothing else for the day, I will just be screening all the films for them on DVDs or Blu-rays on my computer, and then I'll write coverage. And then at the end of the day, I will submit them to my supervisor. So that's kind of like the day off almost every day for 2 months.
I was just fascinated by your daily schedule, having to watch 5 films a day.
Yeah.
How do you...
Yeah, but I watch up to 5 films a day. It could be 3 films sometimes. Okay. I have like stuff to do. I may have to do a coffee run, which is part and parcel of being an intern. Right. Or I have to drop off something at the cinema nearby or something like that. So that's in general I do about 3 to 5 films. And actually the marketing manager, the marketing director of marketing, I got then this fantastic guy called Mike Winton, who no longer works there. He's gone on to another company, but Mike would let me rate the DVD closet. So every acquisitions department, every distribution company, if they made home videos, so they would keep like a box in the marketing cupboard or the marketing room, right? And then they will give out these things to press or whatever. So they always had they had all the films that IFC distributed on Blu-ray or DVD. And Mike, as a nice way of sending me off after the internship, he let me pick everything I wanted.
But by the end of the internship, how many films you've seen?
Oh my god, I can't count. I think it was something like oh my goodness, over 200 films maybe. No, not so much. 150. I would say 150 films. I would say about 150 films. And because it was very hot in summer in New York City, and my apartment, which I rented for very cheaply, didn't come with air conditioning, I was voluntarily staying back to watch, to use their boardroom, which is air conditioned in the office building, to watch their IFC films. The films that on a screener if I missed it in the festival. So I remember watching Margaret, Kenneth Lonergan's film, because it just came out, and I bought the film on Amazon, and it had the extended cut. I have read so much about the extended cut of Margaret, and it only was available on the Blu-ray. So I remember I sat in the boardroom by myself from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. after work and just watched that amazing 3-hour cut of one of the finest filmmakers who's still alive today. So I remember doing that. Yeah. So
about Margaret, I actually bought the DVD.
Oh.
And it's lying somewhere, and I haven't picked it up and watched.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure the DVD comes with the extended cut, but because the story of that film is, I think Harvey Weinstein got his hands on it and got cutted like really badly, and then there was like a whole like grassroots campaign to try and put together the original kind of Lonergan cut, which is like 3 hours long. So, so that I'm not sure who. Maybe it's not Harvey Weinstein, but somebody made him cut it down to 2 hours. At Fox, so it's not Harvey Weinstein. So Fox made him cut it down to 2 hours. He was never happy with the cut, and then so they managed to come out with on Blu-ray on the home video release. So that was why. Yeah, but great, yeah. I hope you get around to it one day, Jonathan.
I have to find it, man.
Okay.
Maybe we can move on and talk about your experience at Universal.
Okay, yeah, so that was very different. So at Universal Pictures International, I worked on the Universal Studios lot in Universal City. So that was back in Los Angeles. The last semester before I graduated, I got an internship at Universal Pictures International, UPI. And UPI was completely different from IFC. When I was, in the cluttered desk with IFC with a pile of screeners, now there were all these nicely demarcated office cubicles with desk walls as high as I am. I'm about 1.83 meters tall. And so it was a very sterile is the word that comes to mind. But I mean, this is the studio that also brings. So we were working with in the Universal Pictures International office. We were right beside Illumination, which is the animated studio part of Universal. So there were all these like Minion posters and I think the Grinch or something lying around while we were also doing. So anyway, back to UPI. UPI, Universal Pictures International, is the acquisitions arm of Universal Pictures. So as a studio, you primarily produce your own films, right? So you option and you develop them in-house with your producers, or maybe through a first look deal or whatever, through a PFD deal, which is a production financing distribution deal, to ensure that your studio has X amount of films to release every year. The big franchises like, of course, Fast and Furious, like Universal was involved in, so that was sort of the things that make the money for them. But there was always a few slots for acquisitions of independent films that may have come up that could benefit from a very specific release through Universal Pictures International. And actually, they were treading kind of a weird line because they were trying to find like they were trying not to tread on the toes of Focus Features, which was the prestige Arthouse arm of Universal Pictures. So Focus Features, of course, does the high-end quality films, most notably with Wes Anderson. They have been releasing his films. So that's kind of the range of the budget that they can actually acquire at. So Universal Pictures was more like for the odd horror film that this is not bad, but it doesn't really fall under Focus Features. So there was a very specific kind of agenda that the people from UPI went to the film festivals to buy films and watch films that ensured that they don't quite cross into the territory of the Focus Features team. So I had to also learn all that stuff as well. It was very eye-opening. I also had to do the daily trades email, and I got quite close to the guy who eventually, Peter Kujawski, whose nickname is Cujo, and Peter eventually is currently now the president of Focus Features. So he went from Universal Pictures to Focus Features. So that sort of gives you an idea of the people I was working under and what I was learning. Yeah.
Wow. So it
do acquisitions. Sorry, same thing.
I mean, it sounds amazing, right? So, which leads me to ask, why did you come back and start Anticipate Pictures? Why not just stay in the US and continue working there?
Yeah, I think that was the original idea, was that I would stay in the US to learn a bit more and then maybe come back and do something similar in Singapore. That was not easy because I don't. So to stay in the US, you have to be sponsored under a company. And in these fields that I was in, any film school graduate probably would start out as an assistant if you're lucky, or even lower down the tier, you would start as someone's like a general intern or something. The film industry is sort of not very fair to because there's so many graduates every semester, and there's only so many slots you can fill. And if you are a resident or a US citizen, it would be easier to work up the ranks. But to stay in the US as a foreign citizen and work, you had to be sponsored under somebody, and that company has to pay you X amount of dollars. You had to be a degree holder, etc., etc. So for some certain reasons here and there, these paths didn't lead me to be able to let me stay in the US, which is fine. I think at that time I was a little bit more anxious about that. I really wanted to stay, of course, but when I came back to Singapore, I realized actually there was a lot I could do to serve the community here. And I started out by working at the Substation, which was a non-profit art center, which is where I first got to know you, Seping, actually. So that was a formative time of the beginnings of my career back in Singapore.
I'm curious, when you were working at a Substation, what did you learn about audience taste in Singapore? And maybe you could also share a bit more about the type of films that were released during your stint at a Substation.
So the Substation is a non-profit arts organization. So we primarily focus on honing and promoting local talents' works. So this was vastly different from what I do now, and what I did in Universal Pictures or IFC, which was to find films maybe perhaps from other countries, or mainly from other countries, and bring them into Singapore. So at the Substation, I was in touch with local filmmakers and trying to get to see the films and present the films under our First Take program, which was a program that was built to give exposure to first-time filmmakers. But bearing in mind that the Moving Images program, as well as the First Take program, when it first came up in the early 2000s, YouTube wasn't really a thing. So local filmmakers really had no other choice to release or show their works to even their own friends and family, unless they rented a cinema, or I don't know, they had to get people to their house and watch it on TV or something. So we were one of the only few places where emerging filmmakers' works could be seen in the cinema with audience, perhaps people that you don't even know. And that was in the spirit First Take was sort of set up, and in that spirit Moving Images was sort of given that purview. But in the 2015 when I joined, of course, we were completely in the era of videos of streaming and YouTube, and Vimeo, of course. So anybody could just upload their film if they wanted to, their short film onto these platforms and gain their audiences through that. So while the work we did was important because we also curated the films that were coming through not just First Take program, but other programs that we run, like Asian Film Symposium and Singapore Short Film Awards. So some of these other programs that we did in Substation helped to promote the films. And Substation also became a linchpin in that time to reach out to other organizations overseas to promote Singapore filmmakers' works overseas. So in that position, I was very lucky to be able to travel to some of these places with local filmmakers' works and talk about local film industry in Singapore. But of course, this is me coming back from a 5-year period in the US. So I had a lot of learning to do, a lot of catch up. So of course, local filmmakers in Singapore, they have heard about the Story Moving Images program, and here was this guy, ostensibly Singaporean, but has not been in the scene for over 5 years. So there's a lot of catching up to do. There was a lot of bridges to build. But unfortunately, after about 1 year and 3 months, I had to leave the position because the new artistic director closed that program down. So now we're in 2016, and that was when I had the idea to start Anticipate Pictures, and that is where we are at after seven years. Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about that bridge that you mentioned, coming back from US and kind of having to catch up with the local scene.
Yeah.
I would suppose there are some trends that you are kind of observing in the filmmaking scene, and while you are still kind of, I don't know, maybe psychologically, emotionally dealing with the remnants of your stay in US, that scene over there. So I find that quite interesting. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I think after being in the US for 5 years, steeped in the independent filmmaking scene, especially with film students there, you realize that I think a lot of people have a lot of like agendas when they are filmmakers in the US, because they are, you know, in the hub of filmmaking, and you have to sort of be very quickly be able to suss out what people really want out of this thing they're doing. If they are making a film, you need to also try to figure out like what is actually their motive behind making this film, and how your contribution to their vision is going to help them, and vice versa, how it's going to help you. So there's a lot of like multi-layered, like you have to sort of reach between the lines. What is the person saying, and is the time that I spend on their work going to be valuable for myself, not just for them, right? But I think in Singapore, when I came back, I realized that it was still this very blissful, pure kind of innocent way of filmmaking. That you really want to make the film just tell this story, you know. And there was not a lot of those like hidden agendas, things that you might have to sort of suss out before you start doing something with someone. If someone came up to you in Singapore as a local filmmaker, or at least the younger generation of filmmakers, which Substation and Moving Images was primarily serving, usually they just really want to make this film because they want to tell this story. There was no sort of like ulterior motive. But in the US, you're sort of conditioned to expect that. Yeah, so then you have to solve. Oh. So I had to not be as guarded with my resources as Moving Images programmer when I first started at Substation, and really come to believe that actually, you know what, these guys, they just want to make films, they want to show the films and get feedback and grow, and they just want to have a place to meet other filmmakers in person, because nothing beats that first take screening where your film is with like 4 other films and you're meeting those filmmakers for the first time as well at the same physical screening, and they're shaking their seats. They don't know what I'm going to ask them at the Q&A afterwards, or what the audience is going to ask them in the Q&A afterwards. And so it's a very pure kind of spirit that I had to sort of like get adjusted back to in my position at Substation. Yeah,
I actually remember watching some first take screenings like in the 2000s. Yeah, it's very the blissful experience that you speak about. It's very much like that.
I was just recalling you at the Substation during one of those late night screenings, and you're wearing your shirt and your pants and standing, and there were like 2 or 3 seats in the middle, and you were just asking questions. Yeah, wow, that was a long time ago.
Feels like a eon. Only 8 years.
8 years is a long time.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, but at the same time, it feels like it's quite hard to recreate that feeling.
Yeah,
I don't know.
For sure. I feel that since the first take program and Moving Images program sort of like ended, there hasn't been really a space for burgeoning filmmakers to show their work and not be in some kind of competition or ranking, because I think now it's all about awards, right? And like how we can give recognition to people's good work. But I think for the starting filmmaker now, if I were to remove myself from my current position as Anticipate Pictures as a distributor and go back to that position of trying to just develop talent from a very nascent level. And I think this is also a thing about Singapore. I also realized that we like to champion things that have like been proven themselves overseas before we realize that, hey, actually they're not bad, or like they're actually very good, and then we come back and then we champion the hell out of them. That's not so much the push from the beginning, although that's changing because we have more and more and younger savvy producers that we all know, you and Seping, or we all know about the younger producers who are really the ones who are starting to develop relationships with very exciting young filmmakers. And a lot of their works are showing at SGIFF this year. So, and that's probably why I'm starting to go into this as well, into the distribution of Singapore films. Yeah.
When did you start to incubate Anticipate Pictures?
I think it was when I gave my notice in January 2016 to Substation, and I was thinking of what to do. And I was at the time 27 years old, and I was not married. So it was not a lot of heavy responsibilities. Not looking to settle down very quickly or have a family or any of those like big Singapore checklist things. So I figured if I didn't sort of do something now with what I already know, then there's really no time else to do it. What if I started another job or found another job somewhere and just never left that to do something that I really wanted to do? And like I mentioned, even back in college days in the US, I was always trying to figure out distribution. And I thought, okay, well, I mean, in the time that I was 15 years old, making friendships with JB video pirates, to when I came back and was starting to think about what to do after Substation 12 years later, not much has changed in the distribution scene. There was like one or two companies that have like sort of come and gone, that have dealt with foreign Arthouse product, but not really succeeded for, I don't know why. I was about to find out why, because it was very tough. But again, naivety and purity of just wanting to do something seriously with distribution, especially bringing in films from overseas, because I had already done the promotion of the local talent out. But what I realized also is that your local talent may not be able to understand the playing field out there if they are not exposed to what kind of films beyond the commercial films in commercial cinemas. So what is the Arthouse film director in Belgium making? And they're the ones going to 80s festivals, not just in Europe but in Asia, Busan. So no one, unless and there was not really a company that was releasing films consistently throughout the year. Of course, now today we have the projector, we have Singapore Film Society, we have of course SGIFF that's like only once every year, but no one was sort of consistently doing that in 2016. And I was waiting for someone to do that since I was 15 years old as a cinephile back then, a young cinephile. So I was like, okay, enough is enough. I have to like start trying to do something by myself. So I somehow managed to put together a business plan using a business plan for dummies book. And then I when raising funding, it was going to like family friends who I know had some means, and like trying to share with them what I was trying to do. Also reminding them that this is completely not may not make money at all, and actually has not made back money yet. We're on the way, but we're not there yet. But yeah, so traditional investors in Singapore, they are all about they want to see an exit plan in profit. 5 years or less. And a profit, some exit strategy going on. So I don't think I want any of those kind of investors over. But eventually, there was one person who was a family friend. And I think in this person, he saw in me, beyond the fact that I was trying to put together this business, and I seem to have some background in doing this, but also maybe my own character perhaps may have helped in persuading him to invest. And so I think also this person has already investments that have paid off in other things. So I'm not completely sure about this, but I'm sure that he has really diversified his portfolio. So with me, maybe it was a charity case. It was like, I know this person, he seems genuine and he wants to do this thing. And it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things. You're not asking me for millions. So,
Patron of the arts.
Yeah, it was like a patronship almost, like a patron for this thing to start. So with some seed money, I managed to start. I went to Cannes in May 2016, and I bought a film. Then I officially incorporated a company in September 2016. So then it was off to the races. And then I really found out how hard it was to release a film in Singapore.
You mentioned going to Cannes. I think that's a good place for me to ask, right? Can you just quickly walk audiences through like the entire end-to-end journey of releasing a film?
Releasing a film or at Cannes or at the film festival?
like literally the whole journey, going to Cannes, scouting films, speaking to sales agent, just a quick, like maybe 2-3 minutes if it's possible.
Sure.
Just for audience to have a taste of, the behind the scenes of being a distributor.
This is session 2 of my movie business class at SUSS. My second lesson in 2 minutes. Okay, sure. About a month before the major film festival, usually it's Berlin and Cannes I go to. Used to be Toronto as well, but that's quite far away. So in Cannes is for me, Internship Pictures is the major market. About a month before Cannes itself, they will release the full list of films that they've selected. And this is important because from this list of films in that 1 month, we suss out what films work or make sense for Singapore audiences. Some of them, maybe I personally like a lot, but do not make sense for Anticipate to pick up. So, for example, a 3-hour Turkish film, probably not so easy to sell or get a cinema to play, a theatrical run. So, but perhaps a shorter film or something that's won an award or critical acclaim. Even sometimes critical acclaim can also help 3-hour film. But anyway, so in this 1 month before the festival, no one has any, no one has seen the film, no critics have seen the film, so you don't know. So you just sort of see like who's in the film, which directors are in the film, which stars are in it, and then you sort of see you marry the log lines with the director, the talents involved, and then you sort of make a preliminary judgment. Is this film sound promising? Then about 1 to 2 weeks before the actual festival, they will release the market screenings. So there's a schedule, a private schedule as well as a public one, about what films will be screening at the festival. And usually then I will intensely schedule all my screenings. So I schedule up to 5 films a day in the cinema for every day at the festival. And in between those screenings, I'm also meeting people. I'm meeting sales agents. So at the same time, I'm also slotting in 30-minute meetings with sales agents, people who represent these films for sale. So I have to have some FaceTime with them, and it's always nice to see them in person. It's not always nice to catch up and see what's on their slate for that year. So Then I go to the festival proper, and I usually go about maybe 4 to 5 days earlier on the start of the festival, just to get acclimatized to Europe time. In general, it's easier to get for us to just stay up later to get acclimatized to Europe time. But I do this because it ensures I have maximum efficiency when I'm on the festival in Europe time, because it starts at like 8 a.m. and it goes all the way to like midnight and beyond. If you have a party you have to go to for networking reasons. So I have this grid. I plan out all my days and the films I want to see, and I do these meetings and I go to these screenings. Here and there, you will hear drips of information through the grapevine from other. So I have my own network of distributor friends, people who service Taiwan or Thailand, the US. Of course, I keep in touch with my colleagues from IFC, Universal Pictures. Although of course the higher they go, the less they get to seem to talk to you. But anyway, the point is, they know me, and we sort of, if I see them on the ground, we talk and we share what films have impressed us, and those films that impressed these people don't seem to be on your own list. Then you have to rejigger them every day. Like maybe I can try and slot in a film or replace something with another thing, and so you try and. I realize also that doing deals on the ground sometimes does not really help you as a business, because maybe the asking price is very high because the hype is so high. So I have a mandatory cooling off period for myself. So I go and watch a film. If I really like it, I will not make an offer immediately. Maybe I'll wait 3 or 4 days. But I'm only able to do this because I after so many years in the business, I know the people who are selling this film. So I always tell them, hey, I might be interested in the film, but like just keep me updated if anything's going on. If anybody wants to buy the film, then we can maybe we can expedite a meeting or something. So at the festival, I screen all the films I want to screen, and I do the meetings I do. I come back to Singapore, and then I will have continue my email correspondences with my contacts and the producers and the sales agents. Eventually, about 2-3 months later, we have a soft slate of films that we will release in SGIFF time, which is this time of the year and beyond. We usually have a schedule to book our release schedule about 6 months to a year in advance. So whatever I buy at Cannes or Berlin in February and May, Berlin's in February and Cannes in May, the films I pick up usually premiere perhaps towards the end of the year. In some special circumstances, they may premiere a bit earlier, depending on what festival is interested or whatever organization is interested to present it. And then the theatrical release, which is always mandatory for my films that I pick up, will occur either at the tail end of the year or during Oscar season and then beyond. So that is in a nutshell what I do at the festival. Sourcing the products that I intend to sell in Singapore.
Maybe let's talk about some of the films that are currently showing on your slate and some that you'll be releasing in a couple of months as well.
Sure. We are releasing How to Have Sex now. And to be quite honest, it's not doing as well as we would have liked.
Even great film, by the way. In my opinion. Oh. Yeah, I catch it last week.
Awesome.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Molly Manning Walker is actually a classmate of mine. Not technically my classmate, but we went to school around the same time in NFT.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And she was doing the cinematography department.
While I was doing directing. For cinematography.
Yeah, which is crazy when she graduated and she became a more successful director than everyone who graduated in the batch. Even crazier fact is, in January, she had a film that she shot as a cinematographer in Sundance, Scrapper, I think so. In May, she debuted her own film in On Certain Regard in Cannes. So speaking of a double whammy,
Yeah. So this is a filmmaker that we are very excited to present in as part of Anticipate Pictures. So I mentioned about a month before a festival, the film list release, and then I sussed out which films to watch based on the talent attached to it. So a director maybe I've been tracking for a while, or a star that I've been tracking for a while that seems to be making good decisions in their acting roles. So it's always a nice surprise when someone like Molly Manning Walker comes up out of the grapevine, with no hype whatsoever. I also didn't I have not ever heard about Scrapper until much later after I bought How to Have Sex. And, you see that film and in Cannes, and it's like, this is a fresh and new voice that I would love to champion and see. And it's the kind of film that I think it will have some commercial value that we're able to sustain it in its theatrical run. So these are the kind of films that we love to discover and love to present as part of the pictures. So case in point also, for example, I've been tracking Joachim Trier, the Norwegian director, for a while, and his first few films never quite made sense for a theatrical release, even though I really respected them from a very cinephile point of view. But when The Worst Person in the World was released, I was like, okay, this is a film that has definite commercial value, and we want to be on board to finally be able to present this film to bring it to Singapore audiences on a very consistent basis, right? It's a theatrical release. So, of course, we went straight for that. Ruben Östlund, which we have been following since The Square, and personally as a cinephile since Play, and then, of course, The Square came out with with this film, Square, and then came out with Triangle of Sadness. So we were very happy to be on board with both of those titles. So it's all a matter of like tracking filmmakers at this point, and not just, I think for a lot of organizations in Singapore whose mandate is to track local talent, like for example myself in Substation, that was all we were tracking. But imagine that kind of tracking extrapolated to the world. Like I have been tracking exciting filmmakers and stars from every part of the world. Like when Robert Pattinson, because I of course we all know Robert Pattinson from the Twilight series, but actually he's been making very good and consistently exciting products with some very interesting filmmakers like David Cronenberg. So even though, like for example, Maps of the Stars was not we didn't get that film. It's an interesting role. So when he acted in the Safdie Brothers' Good Time, and I had seen the Safdie Brothers film, Heaven Knows What, previously, and I thought that so the combination of exciting young filmmaking duo with an exciting young star coming out in a film that was released in Cannes. That was, and as a distributor, you also get access to a script of the film, of the finished film, and I read it and I knew exactly what kind of film it was going to be. So that was a film that I bought on script before I had even seen the film. So we were very happy to be with that title, Good Time. And of course, now the Safdie Brothers have gone on to do very exciting things like Uncut Gems, that's with Netflix. So we're very happy to, and also filmmakers like that, we track. Christos Nikos is another one. We had a small Greek film called Apples, which we released just after the pandemic, and we did poorly. But this was a filmmaker that we thought had promise, and I wanted to show his first film, Apples, in Singapore. And now he's gone on to make this film called Fingernails with Apple TV Plus. So,
so Fingernails is by
Christos Nikos,
the director of Apples. Oh
correct.
My God! Right.
So I seem to be quite on the spotting talent quite okay in terms of a distributor. So I'm proud to be able to represent these early works before they are bought up by streamers and whoever that we can't touch them anymore because they are too expensive. But yeah, so that's kind of where I find my sweet spot in films. Sorry, I don't think I'm answer your question.
What about the other films that you are about to release now? Maybe you can speak about the tracking process with them as well.
Sure. So, of course, we always look at the filmmakers who win, the films who win, because A-list festival wins of course, they have a lot more clout when it comes to being able to sell them. It's nice to be able to say this film has won this award. That's why you should come see it. And it's even better if those films are like, personally, I like them a lot. So, Anatomy of a Fall was a fantastic procedural film, courtroom drama, played by an actress who we've been tracking since Tony Erdmann, Sandra Hüller, who was in 2 films this year, The Zone of Interest with Jonathan Glazer, another filmmaker we've been tracking, as well as Justin Trier's Anatomy of a Fall, which won the Palme d'Or film. So of course, these films were high up in our radar, and when we watch them, of course, we get in touch with the producer or the sales agent, and we try and say we really like these films, and we would love to represent them and pick them up for Singapore. And then it's down to the nitty-gritty of negotiating. So I think with Anatomy of a Fall, we waited until after it won the big prize, so the price was a bit higher. But of course, now we have quite a lot of buzz about that film. We sold out the first 3 films at the French Film Festival, and we'll be releasing it quite soon, 23rd of November, just 10 days from now. So a lot more people are going to discover this fantastic title. With Wim Wenders, Perfect Days, of course, we know Wim Wenders. He's an auteur since the 70s, and this is his latest film. Set in Japan, with an actor that we've also been tracking since we had Koji Yakusho in Old Lucy, in a very small part in Old Lucy, and of course we know him because he also came to Singapore as part of SGIFF's award 1 year, 2017. So tracking Koji Yakusho, we also know this Wim Wenders, and we saw the film, made a great fit. Saping, you saw it already, you loved it, we loved it, and thought, okay, this film will definitely do well. I think it will do well in Singapore, given the themes and of course the expected rating, which was PG-13 in the end. So that was these were just so all these factors must line up. The film must be good first, right? And then whether or not the theme and the content of the film, basically the story, does it resonate with a Singapore audience? Can I see these playing for 2 weeks or more, and people coming out to see this on a Friday night, like literally coming out from workplace or their homes to a cinema to buy 13, 15 tickets and seeing this in person. So if all these films sort of make sense in this criterion, then we will make the offer and buy them. Yeah.
Have you ever had this scenario where like for example, I buy vinyl records, right?
Yeah.
And then I go to a record shop and there's 2 records I really want.
Yeah.
But out of my own austerity, I can only buy one, right?
Yeah. Right.
And drop the other one. Do you have that same with film acquisition? 2 equally great films, you love them, could possibly sell equally, but you can only pick one. And could you state an example?
Oh my goodness. I think off the cuff, I definitely would have been in situations like that. So previously I would have been a bit more easygoing with my acquisitions. I wouldn't think them through in granular detail in terms of like being able to make back the investments in them, because I was buying them as a cinephile. And also as a younger company, you have a larger budget to play with because you just got this capital, and then it's up to here's a checkbook. You're the only person signing off on this, so it's like, oh, Tincai, and then you lose a lot of money that way. So then being down to like the last, gasping breaths of the budget, and then you're like, okay, I can't like sort of fuck around anymore. I have to like really drill down. So okay, yes, if there comes 2 films, I can't really remember offhand if there were any films like 2 at the same time that I really loved, but I can only choose one. There were situations like that, but then it comes down to things like topicality. And what I mean about this is, for example, when I bought For Sama or even City of Ghosts, I think these are films set in the Middle East, specifically like Syria. And in 2016, ISIS was sort of on everybody's mind because of they had just taken over Syria. And so I bought For Sama just because it was a very emotional film and it was very good. It was almost like a passion buy. I expected to lose money on it because who's going to watch a film, about a mother in war-torn Syria trying to like decide whether she wants to stay to fight for her country against her own corrupt government, or she can flee like everybody else and run to Europe. But I think people were really drawn to the story. First of all, for the same reasons as I did, because of the emotional impact. But I think people are starting to realize actually the Middle East has it's a very topical place even today, of course, with the wars, even since 2016 and before that. So people were interested in general in this part of the world, and then my film came out and it gave them this kind of like want to see in the cinema even. Need. And then when the word of mouth came out, people like crying and sobbing like I did, especially at certain parts of the film, then the hype really grew. So it comes down to that sometimes, like topicality. And sometimes it also comes down to like, have we done a film like this before? If we did, maybe we don't have to do this film again, this kind of film again. So, I can't really, like, I think maybe for a while we were deluged with a lot of COVID documentaries. So then it was like, maybe do we do one? Do we not do one? So yeah, I think in the end we don't really have a COVID reflection documentary in our slate.
Right.
Maybe just because, and deep down it's something that we have to deal with, but maybe we don't want to revisit in such short order. So things like that may also affect. So sometimes a film can be too topical, and then be like, maybe we don't. Yeah, because there's also a lag time between when I buy it and then when I release it. So if it's not topical anymore, also it's a bit like it's a bit of a gamble. Every film we do. Yeah.
Talking about topical, right?
Yeah.
There is also you release Young Ahmed by Darden Brothers.
Yes.
Just curious to learn your thought process into the acquisition of that film.
Thought process on that, it was a very bad investment. On a very business level, because we never got to release that film. We had a single film screening of Young Ahmed by the Darden Brothers are of course very well known tours in Arthouse cinema, and we've been tracking them for a while, a long time. And so when Young Ahmed came out, it was a very topical film because it was about the jihadism of young Muslim youth, especially in Western cultures and societies. And for a lot of reasons, this film was seen as problematic by people who were not involved in the making of the film. And so it wasn't a film that they felt like they wanted to champion or even release. And so, I bought the film for quite a bit of money, couldn't get it to be screened theatrically. We only had one or maybe two screenings at the EU Film Festival as part of the Belgium film pick that year, but then we didn't do anything with that. It's online now. It's on Vimeo and iTunes Singapore, but of course we lost so much money on that. So sometimes it's so that's one of the films that we bought that we couldn't get the release for perhaps we misjudged the topicality a little bit and the optics of certain titles that we have. Other films that we tried but couldn't release were was a film called Shut Up and Play the Piano. So that was a film about Chili Gonzalez, a Montreal-based musician. Very interesting story, but like no one knows about this guy, and so no one will go out and see it, and so we lost money on that. We also had a film. The second film we ever bought right after Tony Up Man was a film called Safari, a documentary film about rich European tourists who go to Africa and hunt safari animals for sport. Which is actually markedly a lot less controversial than some of his other films. Ulrich Seidel is the Austrian director of this title or this film. And I thought, okay, this is a film that was quite interesting and shot in a very, very interesting way. And it features people that we will never meet here. So bought the film, didn't get to release it at all. So these are 3 titles that are part of our slate that we never got to do anything with, unfortunately. So you have to live and learn.
But can I say that, first of all, I love Ulrich Seidel.
Yeah.
I think the Paradise trilogy, especially Paradise Love, it's so wonderful. Oh my God. It's so brutal in its reality, but the main character, that middle-aged woman who's trying to find love amongst, like, basically the story is, middle-aged women, they travel to Africa to partake in, I don't know what you would call it, like love, quote unquote, love.
Yes.
And it's just, you just see how desperate she is for some kind of human connection, and it's so good. So and I really like Safari. I'm glad you released it, even though it didn't make money for you.
Yeah, it's okay. You have to live and learn on these films that you
Speaking of like picking films and like you reflecting on some that are bad investments, as I was looking through your slate, I realized that you actually have Pig, but with Nick Cage in it. Yeah,
you did.
Which was quite surprising. Not because it's not a film that I wouldn't expect you to pick, but it's not that indie as well. Like you would expect actually. It play at Shaw or something like that.
So Shaw is our biggest competitor.
Yeah. So
Really,
how did it fall into your slate? Yeah.
For some reason or other, sometimes these higher profile titles sort of fall through the cracks of our bigger rivals. So in Singapore, we are competing against, in terms of the independent distributors or people who buy independent films from markets. So Shaw is the big one, right? And they've been around since 1926. So they have a lot of money and they have a lot of connections even before I came into the picture. And so they are in a very nice, comfortable position of being able to pay and choose and have their own cinemas to release films that they bought in without needing to go through the haggling and negotiating with cinemas process because they own one, right? So sometimes we have a film like Pig that sort of falls through the cracks and no one seemed to have picked it up, even though it stars a pretty big film star. And so I'll tell you with passing time and if the film is still stuck on some sales agent slate, the asking price can go down. And it comes down to like, no one else is asking about this film. So, and then this small Anticipate Pictures comes in and, makes an offer. They're like, we'll just take it because why not? It may be chump change for them, but at least they can tell the producer that they got somebody to release it in this part of the world. So we got lucky with this film. Another film I consider quite lucky to have gotten was House of Hummingbird, which is a South Korean film that South Korean films are like really hot. They're red hot. They're so hot that like there's no way in hell you're able to get the next Park Chan-wook film, Bong Joon-ho film. If it's not already bought by a major streamer, it's being bought by Encore or Clover, my other 2 big rivals, who traffic primarily in Pan-Asian films. So for some reason, House of Hummingbird, it won New Currents that year in Busan. Didn't quite get that, pick their interest for some reason or other, but we saw it, we loved it. And we just...
That film is a hood classic, man.
It's a what classic?
Hood classic.
Hood classic.
Yeah. Not that it has characteristics of the hood, but I feel like it's a film that in a few years' time people will bring it out and like, hey, House of Hummingbird.
Yeah. We're always looking for that kind of film that becomes people's next favorite films. When I saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I mean, I already known Celine Sciamma's films, Tomboy, and of course she wrote Life as a Zucchini. So when Portrait of a Lady on Fire came out, I saw that film and I was like, people are going to fall in love with this and stand this film. If you can find a film that people will stand, that you know you've got, first of all, a profitable product. But second, a very good film that people will come back to the cinema to watch, and you want that kind of title.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Very rare. They do the highest possibilities are usually found at these A-list festivals. So, House of Hummingbird, when you see that, you know people are going to fall in love with the story of this young girl, and then you see the director's profile and the intelligent way she handles Q&As, and so of course we got her into Singapore that year for the release of House of Hummingbird at AFA, at Asian Film Archive. So yeah, we knew people would fall in love with House of Hummingbird. We knew that people would fall in love with Portrait of a Lady on Fire. We tried to bring in, now that the French Film Festival is, so that year for French Film Festival, we were really trying to get Celine Sciamma to come to Singapore. Yeah, so I think it would have been fantastic if she came. And she actually lived in Singapore for a while, Celine Sciamma. It's crazy. But she has some, she's lived here like as a teenager or something for a short period of time, maybe like half a year or something like that. So she has like some relationship. So anyway, we didn't get that. That didn't happen eventually because she had to go and campaign for a film, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, in Los Angeles. So I mean, whatever. I guess that's too bad. We are not compete. We can't compete with American distributors. So when we find like an After Sun. Like when we saw After Sun. A funny story of the film. When I first saw After Sun, it was the 42nd film of the 46 films I saw at Cannes that year. And I was like brain dead by that time. So when I sat in the Critics Week screening of After Sun, towards the tail end of my Cannes, schedule, I was like watching images but not really registering the emotional heft. And so after the film screening, I was like, oh, that was a pretty decent film, but I'm not quite sure why people are like going crazy about it, So then like no one picked it up. Again, fell through the cracks. And then somehow like in August that film was still available. I was like, okay, but the hype has grown to this like weirdly cult level now. Okay, I need to go see this film again. So I asked for a screener. Then I being refreshed, and it was the only film I saw the day. Of course, we all know the emotional feeling we get after the film ends. And I really felt it then. So sometimes these films need like a second viewing to be able to understand the hype. So I felt that way with After Sun, for example. So that's a film that I think people will look back and be like, I love that film so much. Something I will return to time and time again. So yeah, that's kind of where the kind of films that we try and find. Your new favorite films, essentially.
Anticipate is also taking Ziwei. Tomorrow is a long time.
Yeah.
This is your first Singapore film, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's our first ever Singapore film.
How did this come about?
So I've always flirted with Singapore producers, promising ones like Frank Borgia and Jeremy Chua and other Singapore producers who I've always respected their films because while I was importing good Arthouse films in, I was also of course watching Arthouse films from Singapore. And Fran, of course, always has a very good lineup, even though his films may not necessarily translate to the mass Singapore audience because I think they're quite ahead of the audience's time, perhaps. But we've always respected each other's work. He respects Anticipate Pictures' output. I've always respected his film output as well. So I think it got to a point where he just really, perhaps a producer may need help with trying to find marketing, how to market their film best. And I think he really thinks that we do a good job with the films on our lineup. And I think Ziwei's film is a good opportunity to showcase a fledgling Singapore filmmaker who has made his first feature film and trying to give it that kind of theatrical release that it deserves. I think it's still a bit ahead of its time. I think our expectations of the film are realistic, and we know that it will connect with certain audiences very well. And in that mindset, we will shape our marketing campaign based on those expectations and the film itself, of course, what the film is about. So that's why we started to do started to do this films from Singapore. Previously, I will take a lot of meetings with Singapore producers when they make their films, and I'll evaluate their project or the film if it's already finished, and I'll say, okay, you don't need me because the scene here is so small. I can just link you up with who and who of certain organizations that will definitely take to these titles that you have made, and you should then take that conversation further directly, and don't have me as the middleman, because I have very commercial. I have to have, a profit minded, of course. So why do you need me to come in and take a cut of your revenue out before, when I can just tell you straight? You can just go straight to this person and talk to them. I have this conversation directly. But I think there's a growing demand even from Singapore producers who hold their own rights, for them to come to someone like us who's experienced in selling their kind of films, to come in, step in as a distributor and handle their distribution in Singapore for them. So between me and Fran, we have a very good understanding of, and I think our deal is pretty clear cut about that. So of course, it's not just with Singapore films that we are going to do. We're going to do Malaysian films. So Tiger Stripes is another film that he has entrusted to anticipate. And next year we have a few exciting films that we have yet to announce. But next year's output, we are also keenly looking forward to releasing in Singapore as well. Singapore films or Malaysia or Southeast Asian films in Singapore. So this is hopefully the start of something that is really a continuation of my work at Substation, when I was trying to champion Singapore filmmakers' works, but short films then, to the world. But now it's Singapore feature films to Singapore theaters and audiences. So I see it as a nice kind of full circle. I've come back to my original goal at Substation. Yeah.
I want to go back to what you just said about Ziwei's film. You said it was ahead of its time. I'm just curious if you could elaborate more on what you mean by that, and if it is really ahead of its time, why should audiences today pay money to watch it?
Okay, sure. I feel like there is a general set consensus in the industry that the Singapore film output is very polemic. It's on this spectrum of like very art house and very commercial. We know the people who make very commercial films, right? And then we also know the people who make very art house films. So I think Ziwei's film is very, very art house. And the one thing that I think anybody, including these filmmakers, can agree on is that audience development to appreciate the very art house films has not developed substantially, because the exposure is still not there from young to challenge their cinematic appetite. Because when you go to a major chain cinema in your own neighborhood, I live in Yishun. You go to Yishun 10, there's probably no art house product. It's probably a South Korean film, many South Korean action films, and there's a Thai like horror film, Indonesian horror film, and then whatever the studio is releasing at the time. So now it's like the Marvels, right? So there's not a lot of chances for your lay person in these Singapore heartlands to go to a cinema and like be pleasantly surprised by what's this film? I never heard of it, but it's from Singapore. It has Chinese characters or Malay characters on the poster. Let me just go and try it out and take a look. Even if they don't understand it, at least they have that contact with it. So I think for the Singapore art house filmmakers like Ziwei and many others like him, and female filmmakers as well, they make films because they did their homework and went out and consumed a lot of art house films from overseas, because maybe through films like that anticipate releases here, they specifically go out and search, and then they get influenced, and then they make these films in the vein of perhaps the European art house or the American independent films, but they are not the substantial part of the audience that comes out to see my films. And so when they make their films and it's in this art house vein, then the challenge is getting audiences to see these films. And also, it doesn't help that Singapore has double standards, like I mentioned earlier in this recording, that perhaps we only feel qualified to give this film its time in the sun when it has already achieved acclaim overseas. Then we bring it back, and then we think, oh, okay, it's not bad. So it doesn't help that people may not see his film unless it's already got some award overseas or something. So it's kind of a audience development thing. It's a lack of audience development across that. That's why I think Ziwei's film is a bit ahead of its time. But we will do our best with it. We believe he is a filmmaker of tremendous talent. Of course, in the cinematographer, Russell Morton himself is also a fantastic filmmaker, and it's not a combination of factors we really believe in, that we want to give this film its time in the sun, even though it may be a harder product to sell.
I'm curious, right? So let's assume I am your typical 30-year-old Singapore man, and I've never seen art house films. How would you convince me to go and check out Ziwei's film?
That's a very interesting question. I think the key with selling something is not to tell you to watch it. Makes sense. So you are a 30-year-old Singapore man. I will tell you, hey, there's this film about a guy in the army, and he's on the overseas mission, but then he also has kind of a strenuous relationship with his father, a strained relationship with his father. I think it's quite resonant with many people's relationship with their parents. I don't know. It seems interesting. It may not be for you. I don't think it's for you, lah. But it's quite. I think it's quite interesting. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. You want to watch the Marvels? Go ahead, lah. But there's other films. I'm just saying there's other films that maybe will remind you of your time in Kanchanaburi. Sure, it's Taiwan. Not bad. But okay, you don't see it's okay. It's at the projector starting this time. But it's okay. Don't worry. You give you one more info. Okay, I can. I send you the poster. I'm going to see.
Okay. And I think Tiger Stripes is in some ways very different from Ziwei's film.
Very, very different.
It's very, very different. Tell us what attracted you to Tiger Stripes and why you decided to distribute it here.
Oh my god, I love Tiger Stripes. I think I'm a horror film guy, and I realized quite early in Anticipate that horror films don't do well. Unless they're supernatural and set in Asia. So Tiger Stripes ticks the first box, which is set in Asia. And it's in Malaysia of all places, so a lot of people have affinity with Malaysia and the Malay language. So it was quite easy to convince me to want to do that film. I recently watched M. Rahan Halim's La Luna in cinema, and it was fantastic. I mean, it's a completely different film set in Malaysia altogether. It's a very three-act structure. Comedy, love, romantic soft comedy, but about safe spaces for women in the kampong. So that film played gangbusters at the screening I was at, and I predict Tiger Stripes will do the same if people give it a chance, even with its very edgy trailer that we have. I think it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise, and I think it's a film that people will stand to a certain extent once they've seen this. Amanda Nell Yu, of course, is a filmmaker that I've got to know through my work at Substation. She's a crowd of young filmmakers from this region who we were looking at for Asian Film Symposium, which I work with objectives with to set up as Substation. And so I know about Amanda's films, short films, and then I've seen them, and now her first feature, and it's this good. So we were very excited to have the chance to work on it. So that's a film that I know it will do quite well at its opening film at GIFF in end of November. So it's a matter of sustaining that interest from the opening premiere to the couple weeks after that when it has its theatrical release. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Tiger Stripes.
Right, and just now you said horror films don't do well here.
Yeah.
Or did I mishear that? That sounds a bit incorrect.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, did I hear it correctly? You said horror films don't do well.
Western horror films don't do as well in Singapore, unless they are like weirdly like Paranormal Activity or something. I don't know. It's I think Singapore audiences are not so taken with the serial killer, the boogeyman. So we have quite a few horror films on our lineup over the years, over the 72 films that we have bought, and it's like Suspiria didn't do well at all. So that's about witches. It didn't do well. It's very expensive too. So we lost a lot of money on that. We also released Climax by Gaspar Noé, which is a filmmaker I personally respect and revere quite a bit. Didn't do well. We lost money on that film too.
Wow, the one
so
confirmed.
The one hurts the film. We also had The House That Jack Built by Lars von Trier, another filmmaker that I was very excited to work with. Eventually, finally, also didn't do well. And then I think In Fabric was the film about a haunted red dress that I think sealed the. After In Fabric, which was a brilliant horror film from UK about
that's the Peter Strickland one, right?
The Peter Strickland one, yes, about the red dress that is possessed or possesses the owner of or the wearer of the red dress. Oh my god, what a fantastic horror film, and did no business in Singapore. Like no one came to see that film. I was like, after that, it's gonna be hell. I mean, something. It has to be really, really good for me to even consider bringing a horror film in after the failure that was In Fabric. Tiger Stripes is a horror film, but it's sort of cloaked in a coming of age story. So that is slightly different. Every film we do, we respect the fact that it's unique, and we really have to tailor our strategy and marketing campaign towards those films' content and So Tiger Stripes, I think we can still sell it, even though people are going to realize that it's quite a horror film towards the end. But the coming of age thing would, I think, persuade people to go and try it out first. So yeah, and then at the end of the day, I think people will respect it's a pretty good film. It's enjoyable, entertaining. So I think you'll do. Yeah. So yeah, horror films very hard to sell.
Interesting.
Yeah lah. Unless you're doing a Thai horror film. How many of those are gonna see?
Or Korean horror film.
Or Korean, which I can't touch because Limtic at Clover. Or, the Encore will probably have scooped it up already.
Yeah.
Are there any other films in your upcoming slate that you want to talk about?
Wow, outright selling. No lah. I just we're focused on How to Have Sex, of course, trying to make that play as long as possible. It's a film that I think people could give it a shot, but maybe it's too on the nose I don't know. It's a weird thing. Sometimes you think a film will do well, and then it doesn't do well, and then it's the after action review is always like, is it the way we shape the campaign, or is it the film itself, or even things like the title putting people off, So yeah, a lot of things to think about. So we are focusing on How to Have Sex. I think, apart from the films I've talked about already, we're really excited for people to discover Evil Does Not Exist by Ryosuke Hamaguchi.
I'm super excited for that.
Yeah,
same.
If you haven't been able to get tickets to the two SWORD screenings, maybe two SWORD screenings at SGIFF, we are working with other interested parties to try and bring that film sooner to you. I think it's a film that. So we, as anticipated, we previously released one Hamaguchi film which nobody saw. We released
nobody watched,
which is a great film as well.
Yeah, it was a great film, but then Hamaguchi does this thing where he shoots himself in the foot by releasing two fantastic films in a year. One of them is considered a magnum opus that completely overshadows my smaller, more delicate title of his, and I think a better film in general. But anyway, so it's a pity that no one really saw Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. But okay, fine. People saw Drive My Car, and then hopefully they will see my Wheel of Fortune Fantasy online through Vimeo or iTunes. But then of course we have his film Evil Does Not Exist, which I think will take people by surprise a little bit. It is everything you love about Hamaguchi film. The whole Murakami-ish kind of storytelling, the extended dialogue sequences, which are very absorbing. You're like watching this like town hall meeting, like you're like really into it. So it's got all of that, and then it's got a little bit extra. It's a little bit interesting how the film ends, and I'm looking forward to hearing people's thoughts about the film and the conversation you're going to have in the lobby after you finish the film. If I can be an interloper and eavesdrop on your conversation, I would love to be a part of that. So, and I'm happy to be a part of even bringing that film to Singapore for a theatrical release in the first place. So I'm very excited for people to explore, to experience this film in 2024. We are also releasing Sakamoto, Ryoji Sakamoto's very last concert film.
Directed by his son, right?
Directed by his son, yes, Neo Sora. So it's the first time we are doing a concert film, like a pure concert film. But I think it is a film that
it's important. It's for the culture.
Sometimes you buy films to release in Singapore.
That's good.
It's a cultural milestone. It's going to bring some solace to all of us that miss him and his work, and hopefully you will take to it as much as I did. I've seen the film once, but not even in the cinema, and I was like crying throughout. But you know, it's a smaller title for us for sure. But when we got a chance to buy the film in Singapore, we were like, yes, please. We will be down for it, even though it's not a documentary. I mean, you've already seen the documentary. It's called Opus, right? There's no need to retread that. You can watch that film if you want to know about his life and his perspective on music, whatever. So, on this film, it's going to be a pure, just like musical and cinematic experience, lah. Yeah. So that's a film that we are looking forward to doing next year.
Thank you for bringing Hamaguchi's film in.
Okay. Are you guys going to see that in SJFF?
Yes.
By any chance?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Please tell me.
And I want to share that I discovered Hamaguchi at SJFF in 2015 when Happy Hour was screened.
Yes. Oh, yes. AFA did that thing where they played Happy Hour in a 5-hour cut. Oh, yeah. Good.
It was really like one of my revelations of that festival that year. Happy Hour, 5-hour film, but every second was worth it.
I think we also stand on the shoulders of giants, of other organizations in Singapore that have done the work paving the way for cinephilia to take root. With the few people in Singapore that developed that cinephilia, I'll be remiss if I don't mention Warren and Wenjie at the Cinematheque National Museum of Singapore in the 2000s when they did the work to pave the way to really film appreciation. And of course, Singapore Film Festival and Asia Film Archive. These are organizations who I'm proud to call friends, with the people and respect the work that they have done for our community of cinephiles in Singapore. So we definitely stand on their shoulders. The fact that even you, Sepeng, know about Hamaguchi is because of these organizations that have come up before my time, before I anticipate. So I'm so happy that you were fans since then, and we are able to continue that relationship with Hamaguchi for you as a cinephile.
Sepeng also track this filmmaker.
Track this filmmaker is correct. Yeah.
So Vincent, you've been doing this since 2016 for about 7 years. I'm curious, just now at the start of our conversation, you said a lot of things have changed. So what has changed? I think most importantly, I'm curious to know, how have Singaporeans' film tastes changed?
They are better educated. So they demand a certain level of sophistication in their films. I think that is the bulk of our audiences. They are probably they're above 16 years old, 18 to 35. I think that's kind of the core bulk, because our films tend to be higher rated than other distributors' works. So we find ourselves usually in the M18 or R21 spot, which is not the greatest, but we have to deal with it. So the audience has gotten a lot more fickle when it comes to spending time outside of their own homes. So every film we do has to validate their decision to come out to a cinema to see it. a lot of our films don't play anywhere else other than cinema. Yes, we do put the films that we can, the ones that are not R21, on iTunes or on Vimeo for the older titles. But actually, that's not really the core of our strategy. Our strategy is always to bring films to the cinema where they should be discovered first. So I think in terms of the audience demands on what makes a good film to want to belabor the theatrical experience, that has changed, and you have to respect that. Even with my own self, it takes a lot for me to go out to a cinema outside of going to the film festival. So if I think I will be compelled to see this film in the cinema when it comes out, then it's probably a good film to buy. So that's kind of my own marker for whether or not to bring a film. So the other thing that's changed for audiences, I think, is also attention span. So I think it's harder to hold an audience's attention in the cinema, especially when you have like beeping devices and things to alert you of the real world outside of that. And sometimes I find myself not going to the cinema because I don't want to be disturbed by like someone checking their phone in the middle of the film. And I think increasingly these spaces for appreciating cinema have been violated by these small acts of microaggression. Like the microaggression you experience when someone in the train watches TikTok really loudly is the same microaggression you expect that you will face when you go to a commercial cinema and then, wanting to be completely enveloped in this film, but then people are checking their phones in front of you, So I think we have to deal with this fact.
Yeah. And that's when you realize evil does exist.
Evil does exist, and it is in the beeping device. Yeah, so we have come from a time when there were no such things, and now we have Apple Watch, smartwatches that go up, and people don't know how to use their theater mode function. It's like every time there was once at the festival screening where the girl, there's a lady in front of me, and she kept touching her hair. But every time she touched her hair, her arm wrist movement came up, and her Apple Watch just like showed the time. She touched her head 12 times during the entire movie. And I know this because every time she does that, I see the time on her watch. And she doesn't know she's doing it. So it's not even like they want to be assholes. It's just, that's modern technology, like if my utopia, right, is to build a cinema that is like cell phone jamming. Like that. Okay, you're entering a cell phone jamming area. If you have an emergency, there's no other way out. You need to walk outside and find someone. You can't call anybody. You can't text anybody. Emergency call on your iPhone is not going to work. So like that's my dream cathedral of dreams is to have this in technology. But okay, that's maybe a violation of human rights or whatever. Anyway, so that's belaboring the point. So to accept two changes. Audiences are going to be more fickle when it comes to deciding what to go to see in the cinema, and also the fact that the cinema space is increasingly violated by all these small acts of microaggression, and I have to respect that. So if I buy a longer film, I have to be really, really careful if this film is going to hold the attention for everybody who's going to see it. Yeah. So
you also have a TVOD arm of Incubating, right? I'm just wondering, do people pay money to watch films on TVOD?
They do. Yeah, I'm finding that it's an unexpected boon to my bottom line month after month, because we get these like quarterly reports, and then like, wow, X amount of people rented this film. Like Pig didn't do much in cinemas, but then when it's on like iTunes, and we have like, of course, the thumbnail on the iTunes store is Nicolas Cage, right? Intense, holding a mushroom, and then people are inclined to like click and rent that film. So, and after things like Triangle of Sadness, those are always doing well. After Sun is doing really well on TVOD. So I would say that it's a nice bonus, but that's not really the core revenue stream for Anticipate TVOD. In fact, I dropped the ball on putting our newer films on Vimeo, our other the other platform that we have our films on. Most of our films, if they are available, if they are less than R21, so if they're not R21, they're M18 and below, they will be on iTunes. So that's where you can rent them. But then on Vimeo, it's not that updated lah. Yeah. So TVOD doesn't really contribute much to the bottom line, but it's still a nice thing that we expect every month, every three months. Yeah.
Being a film distributor, you watch a lot of films.
Yes.
And, you also probably will have your personal film consuming taste and habits.
Yes.
And I think you also are heavy into the whole purchasing physical media game and all that. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
How
Yes.
how do you balance out your film diet, film watching routine with your job?
Okay, so I watch film screeners. So that's something I cover for Anticipate on a very regular basis. But on the personal front, I am a physical media collector, so I desire the best in terms of quality of home entertainment as well as the packaging. And so, like I think, like in this afternoon earlier, I rewatched The Martian. The Ridley Scott film, but the extended edition in 4K. Because I bought the disc, 4K UHD disc, and at my home we have a Dolby Atmos soundbar, a very good one. So it's sort of that's where I love these. I love sci-fi a lot, even though their budgets may not be. We don't usually get to buy sci-fi films because they are very expensive to produce, so they expect a lot of a high asking price, and the asking price is not in the realm of our own budgets. But I enjoy them a lot, and I collect physical media, especially ones with nice packaging. So for a while now, I've been considering doing something for our own Anticipate films, because of course when we negotiate rights for our films, we don't just negotiate rights for theatrical releases. We also get things like TVOD, which is we get a chance to sell our films online, and we also have home video rights. So it's a matter of trying to make sense on a commercial basis, because there are not a lot of people who buy physical media these days. But if you ask across the board on Reddit, or in these Facebook groups, everybody generally respects that physical media is still the best way to consume a film. You don't have to deal with streaming buffering, quality dropping halfway through because your internet connection has like a lot of people jumping on its bandwidth. So that's the problem with streaming, is that you don't guarantee that kind of quality for your home entertainment. That a well produced 4K UHD disc of some unexpected titles may actually be it is the superior way to consume media films. So increasingly, of course, we're looking at some of the films that people stand from our Anticipate lineup. So Portrait Lady on Fire, or like After Sun. So these are our Worst Person in the World. These are films that we are like thinking of, like, oh, what if we put them on home video, kind of special packaging, and then try and sell it. But of course, these are evolving conversations with various exploratory things that Anticipate is looking at. So in the near future, trying to balance my personal affection for home video, for physical media, and also the commercial constraints of making the numbers work, because you can't just press a film on a disc or 10 discs. You need to like look at like 1,000 minimum or more minimum order quantity, MOQ. So that's kind of things that we're looking at for Anticipate's expansion to other things in the future.
You can collaborate with Rida Video.
Oh, I love Vida Video. I just recently renewed the package, the largest package. I have like $200 for 40 discs. I just bought that again. Yeah, so it's I love Vida. Yeah, Vida is a fantastic. And actually, so Vida Video Center is a home video rental store. They are mom and pop joint in Coronation Plaza. So that's what me and Jonathan are referring to here. So at Vida, maybe I want to watch a film on 4K, but I don't feel compelled to buy it. So that's where I get to rent the discs for as low as $5 a disc. So that's where I go for my fix. So that's a mom and pop joint that's I'm trying to keep alive with my video rentals. But I think increasingly people don't even understand what a Blu-ray player is, even. So that's kind of sad.
To the people out there who have never bought a DVD before, maybe shed some light to them how much a UHD 4K DVD costs in today's market.
A new one, I think now So I think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning just released and costs about 50 to 60 Sing dollars to buy off Amazon and then ship it here. So one disc is maybe about 50 to 60 Sing. Older titles are cheaper, of course. And of course, on Black Friday, you can get a 4K film for like 20 Sing dollars shipped and delivered from the US. It's really expensive to buy. I completely get that, and it's something that I think everybody has their thing that they do for entertainment lah. Maybe it's playing video games, so the PS5 is important for you, or like GeForce One subscription, something like that is important for you. But for me, it's the physical media. So when you stream a film on Netflix, for example, let me give you an idea of the quality difference. Okay, you stream a 4K, so you have to subscribe to the Netflix UHD tier, which is the highest tier to even access the 4K streaming for your beautiful 4K TV that you bought for your house during your home for your new home, your BTO. You buy 4K TV, right? So you want to stream. So when you stream a Netflix 4K, the bandwidth is typically about 30 to 35 megabytes per second. So that's the amount of data that's passing through your box, your cable box to your TV, or for your internet connection to your TV. 35 to 40 megabytes per second. Maybe 50 megabytes per second if you are renting a film on iTunes, which has been seen to be the streaming service that provides the highest quality. That's 50 megabytes per second, highest quality from iTunes if you rent them. On a disc, the quality goes up to 80 to 90 megabytes per second. So that's nearly double the image quality from a disc. Streamed directly with no interruptions, unless you scratch the disc. I mean, that's on you. But yeah, typically there's no, you must have a 4K player, 4K Blu-ray player, and then you have a 4K TV to be able to do this, to achieve that kind of maximum bit rate for your video. Not to mention the audio as well. I mean, Dolby Atmos is available on Netflix and Disney Plus, but the bandwidth for that is also a bit less than the full fat Atmos. So I have friends like Ting Li who are Dolby Atmos engineers, and they put a lot of effort in, and then you don't really hear their effort if you are playing on your TV even if it says Dolby Atmos, and it's not the same. I wish I had the resources to actually outkit the actual speakers, but that's not possible. So soundbar is usually the best way to go for most people in BTOs. So yeah, it's something that I take particular pride in. I'm going on a tangent with this. It's not no way related to Anticipate, but this is something that I'm very curious to. Yeah, and of course now we are looking at, so the latest technology is upscaling of HD films into 4K using AI, artificial intelligence, to help to up-res films. And they've done this with some titles that are not native 4K, but it has very good effect on the big screen as well. So we're looking at all these things, and Asian Film Archive, of course, they do restorations of older titles in 4K. So if someone were to be able to put that on a disc, imagine you can put together a complete Wong Kar-wai collection on 4K UHD. I think that there's definite commercial potential. All of Edward Young's films, on 4K, that'll be fantastic to own and to watch for any cinephile, I think. So yeah, something to think about. Trying to marry my own personal passions with the commercial sensibilities of Anticipate.
Also want to ask, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned expanding into Thailand. Can you talk a bit more about that? When did that occur to you, and what's currently happening and your future plan?
Yeah, so Thailand is the other major market for art house cinema in Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, places like Vietnam or Jakarta or Indonesia, it's really hard to get cinemas to play art house films. Of course, things are changing rapidly. I think some French films are getting played in Vietnamese cinemas as we speak. But I think Bangkok and Vietnam is still, Bangkok is the only, not Vietnam. Bangkok is still the burgeoning market for art house films. They have a couple of art house distributors there, and they also have their GV version, their GV equivalent cinema chain has an art house arm called House. So they are able to make this work for some reason. So let me give you an example. So the first film I bought Thailand rights as well was Portrait of Lady on Fire. So if I will not tell you exact figures, but the amount of money I made in Singapore for Portrait of Lady on Fire, let's call it X, right? And it's based on a $10 US, 13.50 Sing dollars ticket price. In Thailand, the ticket price is around like $5 or $6, like Sing. But the amount of money I made, it's like 2x. So
wow,
2x of X. So X is Singapore, how much I made for Portrait of Lady on Fire. Maybe not 2x, maybe 1.5x in Thailand on a cheaper ticket price. So it gives you an idea of how much bigger the market is in Thailand. Of course, Thailand already has their own Arthouse distributors. So whatever film that they want to do, they pick up. That's great. But sometimes a film like Portrait of Lady on Fire slips by and like no one picks that up for Thailand. So I'm like, okay, if it's not too much more money to pick it up as well, I will definitely scoop in and those rights out as well. So yeah, it was fantastic. So for we did that for Portrait of Lady on Fire. We did that with, I think, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. We even bought that for Thailand, and we played that on a smaller scale as well. Yeah, Last and First Man. Yeah, we also had this art title called Last and First Man by Johan Johansson that we also exploited in Thailand. So yeah, we also have we have an upcoming documentary that we haven't shared yet, but we just recently wrapped this deal like 2 days ago. It's called The Mission. It's a Nat Geo documentary about a Christian missionary who decides he wants to go to the last uncontacted people on earth to try and spread the good word of Christ. And so that's a documentary that we also bought Thailand rights for. So that's something that we want to see how it does as well in a predominantly Buddhist country, I guess. So yeah. So The Mission is coming out in January 2024. So that's a film that we're excited to see play in Thailand. So documentaries do really well in Thailand. So yeah, that's something that we're looking forward to, seeing how it does.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
And
Portrait of Lady on Fire, 1.5x, like crazy. I was like, my God, the appetite in this country for art house cinema is way more than Singapore. Because Singapore, I guess, has less people lah.
So we've come to the final part of our podcast, and as usual, we always do a session of quick-fire questions with our guests.
I'll start. Do you prefer Dario Argento Suspiria or Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria?
Actually, this quick fire, I have to just answer, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I will answer Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria.
Okay.
The sum is greater than its parts. No, the parts are greater than its sum, but there's something to it that I find quite redeeming, even though maybe the sum of its parts is not as good.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for Guadagnino's Suspiria. Yeah.
It's a good Tom York song as well. So
fucking good Tom York song, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a plus.
There's a plus, yes.
Yeah.
And also it cemented Mia Goth as a scream queen. That's something that we really love to track. Mia Goth. Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Next one, Seping.
Okay, this is a three-way. Do you prefer, because you distributed So Long My Son, which is a film by Wang Xiaoshuai?
Yes.
I love that film.
Great film.
So three-way option. Wang Xiaoshuai, Jia Zhangke, or Lou Ye. Which sixth generation director would you go for?
Oh my God. It is so hard. Okay, I have to go with Wang Xiaoshuai for this. Yeah.
Why?
I feel okay. I wasn't very impressed with Jia Zhangke's latest outputs, latest films.
As
of all us. Huh?
As of all us as two.
Okay. That one you see for yourself. As a cinephile, I find Zhangke's output a bit not so good in the later half of his career. And Lou Ye hasn't been consistent as well. Although I do like his Saturday Fiction. But Wang Xiaoshuai is an interesting filmmaker, and so we were very happy with So Long My Son. So I will stick with Wang Xiaoshuai for this.
I come across this, I don't know, Facebook post of yours or something, or is it in the film Telegram group? you're trying to like sell off a Twister DVD, right? Or
yes.
Yeah. So on that, right, I'm going to give you two choices: Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan or Twister.
Twister. Yeah,
Why?
I still stick with Twister because I rewatched that film like multiple times on Laserdisc when I was young.
Right.
Yeah, and it always has a visceral impact on me even when I was older. So you mentioned I was trying to sell this Blu-ray of Twister. Actually, there's a very special Blu-ray that has a brand new Dolby Atmos track, specially mixed for the film, which sounds incredible on a proper player, and which I have. So when I rewatch the film, I also have Daylight, another film.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Daylight is
Dolby Atmos.
It's a childhood touchstone.
Everybody watched that on the TV, right? When it was still a CRT, so nobody saw the widescreen and on Full HD, and now it has Dolby Atmos. Twister and Volcano is another one, very good. The disaster films of the 90s, I think I have a very soft spot for. But between Dante's Peak and Twister, specifically Twister, because I have a soft spot for that film.
I'm sure Channel 5 have both of these films.
Oh yeah.
They probably bought it and replayed don't know how many times.
Yeah. Precisely. Yeah. So Twister for me.
Okay. The next one, two similar films from the 90s. Armageddon or Deep Impact?
Armageddon.
Why?
It's the only Michael Bay film I can reasonably stand.
Yeah.
After all these years.
It's actually a very good film.
Scene, but yeah, it's a soft spot for that film.
Yeah.
I think
it's a film that is stupid and great at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the best of Michael Bay without being overbearing.
Yeah.
Correct. Armageddon.
Okay, I'll go next.
Good, but anyway, sorry.
Ryusuke, so I'll ask next. Ryusuke Hamaguchi's Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy or Drive My Car?
I already gave my answer away. It's definitely Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. Yeah. Okay, so Drive My Car is a film I felt was his magnum opus. Even after Happy Hour, which I've also seen, but I think Drive My Car was his like full meat. This is a tomahawk steak of a film.
Yeah.
And you eat it once, and then a bit jelly. So Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy is like a souffle. Three nice. It's a high tea version, right? So it's like the
you can replay it anytime you want.
And you will still feel it's a nice palate cleanser, especially between each film. And then you get to the end.
That's true. Drive My Car, I think I would just repeat scenes only.
I've only seen it once, and I think I got enough out of that once. So sorry, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy or Happy Hour?
Oh,
wow, that one tough.
This one tough. It's not tougher. I don't know why, but yeah, Happy Hour is also a magnum. It's also very meaty but.
I think for convenient screen time, I'll probably take Wheel of Fortune.
There's something about the economy of the runtime. But I'm gonna turn the tables on you guys when Evil Does Not Exist comes out, or you have seen it. I'm gonna show this and be like, do you prefer this or this? Right? Actually, tell me which Hamaguchi film you stand?
Happy Hour.
Happy Hour lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But between Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy and Drive My Car, what would you choose?
I want to be honest and admit that I haven't seen Wheel of Fortune.
Oh no! Okay. I forgive you. Although we can.
That one I will take Drive My Car.
But I because I have a good reason. Because I watched Asako 1 and 2 and I was like, what the hell is this film? I really did not like Asako, and I was kind of put off by Asako, so I took a pause on Hamaguchi for a while.
As with many people.
Yeah. What do you think of Asako? Like, do you think it's good or so-so?
I think it's an interesting entry in his over, but I would not. It's my least favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was trying something, and for that I respect, but I'm not into that film. So when I finally saw Wheel of Fortune, I was like, oh, okay, it's a return to form at least, because I really like Happy Hour as well. Jonathan, you choose.
I actually really like Asako. Yeah. So I'm in that camp.
Pokemon that likes Asako.
Yeah, I'm in that camp. Yeah, but I can understand why people don't like. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I will go check out Wheel of Fortune.
Okay. It's available on iTunes.
All right. The next quickfire question also involves your title as well. So, to a very similar, not say similar, similar in terms of like female protagonists going through crisis. The worst person on earth or Frances Ha?
The worst person in the world or Frances Ha? Wow, this is really tough.
That's tough, right?
Yeah, because when I saw Frances Ha,
I just rewatched it recently and it's still very good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Yeah.
And fun fact, Frances Ha was distributed by IFC. And it was one of the Blu-rays I nicked, but I had permission from the director of marketing to take home.
Yeah.
So I got a Criterion of Frances Ha from IFC. Oh my god, I really love that film. Okay, yeah. I can't be so predictable. I always pick anticipate films, so I will go with Frances Ha.
Okay, great.
When I encountered that film,
Yeah, great.
I Frances Ha over Worst Person in the World. I think it's because I encountered it at a time when I was really into the mumblecore thing, and I think this is a fine example of that genre. Before it was like overdone now, so yeah. So I will pick Frances Ha.
And it's such a when you watch it now, right, which I did recently, right, and you look at the actors in it, right, and they are huge now, man.
Yeah,
he's one of the world's biggest actors, acting as a douchebag inside, and
who are they?
Adam Driver.
Oh right, Adam Driver.
Yeah, he was in his indie phase then, right, and you would not have seen it coming that this guy would be playing Enzo Ferrari one day. Like, you did not foresee that huge range, you know. Yeah. Neither do you expect Greta Gerwig to direct a $1 billion movie. So
I did not expect her to direct Barbie. So that's this is a mumblecore film that I think if you want to compare mumblecore film like Tiny Furniture or Frances Ha, I think Frances Ha still.
Yeah, same. And I think because Noah Baumbach does have a much more solid craft to back him up, you know.
Yeah, then Lena Dunham. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your guilty pleasure film? Like a very, very guilty, no one would expect Vincent to watch kind of film.
Wow, I have a lot of those films, man.
Guilty pleasure film. Armageddon. I really like Armageddon for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, but guilty pleasure.
Armageddon cool, eh?
Yeah. Armageddon is good.
Bad ones, like
films.
It's
quite it's so satisfying. It's got all the elements of a great commercial film. It's got a great soundtrack. It's got Bruce Willis when he was still lucid, you know, being like a badass, and it's got like father-daughter thing.
Last two questions.
Two questions more. Okay,
two more. So because these two films are tonally quite similar, Patterson or Perfect Days?
Wow,
the first thing I thought of was Patterson. My knee-jerk reaction is Patterson. Yeah. And that's another film that people stand.
That is a great film.
I completely stand Patterson. Perfect Days, I think a bit too new. Maybe I have to like save it for a while more. But yeah, Patterson is I was dating somebody who also had a very soft spot for the Patterson. So I think that's a film that we both love together. So there's also a personal kind of connection to that film as well. Yeah. And also, I also wanted to be a bus driver, like secretly. If I wasn't a filmmaker, like I would love to be a bus captain and drive a bus. So that Patterson part of the story really spoke to me. I don't really feel a connection to wanting to be a toilet cleaner, even for beautiful toilets in Tokyo. So, but bus driver I can definitely see myself doing. Yeah.
Not in Singapore.
No, not in Singapore.
The toilet.
Actually, if we see the toilets in Perfect Days, you're like, wow, these toilets are like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't seen the film, I look forward to hearing you wax lyrical about the Tokyo toilets.
Okay. The very last quick fire question.
Okay.
Money No Enough, the first one.
Okay.
Or Ilo Ilo.
Ayo, no contest Money No Enough.
Okay. Now explain to the audiences why you defend this film.
Wow. I think this is the first Singapore film in the 90s to like really strike a chord with mainstream Singapore. I'll tell you another recent film which I have not seen, but I really want to and I really missed. But that did strike a chord in recent years with mainstream audiences in Singapore. That film is Boy Kwong's Geylang.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that film, like, people really wanted to see it. Like lay people basically, who like had no interest in cinema, but they will go to like GV Katong because Katong is close to Geylang, and then they will watch Geylang. Yeah. So I feel like films that connect with an audience, their local audience, in such a watershed manner, deserve to be in canon, and it's such a great and enjoyable film. It features 3 comedians in the height of their popularity. And this was the time when Singapore film was not trying to be like cool or win awards at festivals. Not saying that Singapore films want to win awards at festivals now. I'm sure many people think of it as a bonus and not their end goal. But back in the 90s, this was just trying to make a good film to connect to mainstream audiences. So I think Money No Enough was that spot lah. I really like Ilo Ilo as well. I think it's Anthony Chen's like best work. And it also resonates also on a very different level. But I think Money No Enough, because I also grew up in the era, the 90s. So that has always been there's no contest lah. I've gone on record saying this in several interviews that I love Money No Enough. So that's my pick.
It's so surprising how well they translate onto the big screen. Straight out from Channel 8, those like comedy night, 搞笑行动.
Yes. Right. Yeah, the variety show, and then they come out with this.
And it works.
Directed by Jack Neo.
Yeah, exactly. There are some scenes in that film, right, where because it's so raw and gritty, right, and you can tell that the director who's shooting it, right, probably just like turn on the camera and let them do their thing, right. But it low-key looks like an art house film from Taiwan.
Wow.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you see that people like Nan and Hui Ge and Mark Lee, right? They are so natural and authentic, right? You're like, wow, I feel like I'm watching those Taiwan art house films from the 90s, not even the Ho Xiao Xian ones, like the imitators, right? So that really resonated.
Singapore has a history by now since the 90s of several watershed moments in cinema, but I think definitely Money No Enough is a huge highlight in the 90s we talk about 12 Stories and Mee Pok Man, but really I think Money No Enough really hit that, and maybe even in a way Jack Neo is still trying to get that hit that peak again.
He's doing the third one though, so that might be a watershed.
I know. It's worrying. But I'll still see that.
I'll still watch it. I'll still watch it. Even the second one, right? It has moments, man.
It has moments.
Yeah.
I forgot about the second one already. Okay. Yeah, the first one. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and with that, we've come to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much, Vincent, for spending 2 hours with us. It was really...
You're welcome. I'm sorry if I went off track a lot.
No problem.
But you can edit it out, I guess. Thanks for having me and for inviting me on your podcast. Very happy to be a part of this. It's a wonderful initiative you have, and I hope I've given you something of value.
Thank you very much.
And just want to let audiences know that you'll be releasing films during SJFF, and if they don't manage to get the tickets because it's sold out, I believe, you'll continue to release those films in the coming 2024. And we'll drop links to your website in the YouTube description.
Thank you so much.
All the best to you, Vincent. We love the work you do, and we hope you keep doing it.
Thank you, Seping and Jonathan, for having me.
Thank you.
Have a very nice evening, and hope to see you guys again in person.